I just got back from U.S. Army Mountain Warfare School in Jericho, Vermont, and let me tell you something. Every single one of our adversaries has mountains. Russia, China, North Korea, even the eastern side of Taiwan, it's jungle covered in ridgelines. No easy way in, no easy way out. Taiwan essentially looks like Vietnam and Afghanistan got together and had a baby. Mountains everywhere. So if you're thinking about planning military operations in the real world, not just on a PowerPoint slide, you better know how to move, fight, and survive in the mountains. And that's what U.S. Army Mountain Warfare School teaches soldiers. I do travel a lot. I travel all the way up to Jericho, Vermont to do this story, and I do not trust hotel Wi-Fi, which is why I use PA VPN. We are at war right now, whether you like it or not. Just today I found out that the Secret Service intercepted this international criminal gang, or maybe it was a state actor, that tried to disrupt phone service in New York City at the United Nations. Look, I have PA VPN on my phone because I can tell you this, if I was walking through New York City, I could have been caught up in that, and PA VPN would have created a virtual tunnel between my device and the public internet that hackers and rogue government agents could not penetrate. A lot of people like to use VPNs because they allow you to change your location virtually so you can watch Netflix documentaries in different countries or get over censorship in the United States. That is very useful, but really we need to worry about our own personal security. And the great thing is that PA VPN works on all my devices, computer, Xbox. So click the link in the description below. Go to pavpn.com/Macbeth or hit the QR code somewhere up there and make yourself a harder target today. The U.S. Army Mountain Warfare School sits on 17,000 acres of rugged terrain called Ethan Allen Firing Range. It's run by the Vermont National Guard, but supported by the active duty Army. And it's open to any branch. Marines, Air Force, even some foreign nations and government employees train at the school. And here's the interesting part. Most active duty Army schools rotate instructors every couple of years, but not this place. Most of the cadre here are mountaineers, real ones, like they actually go on expeditions. Many of these National Guard instructors have been here for years, and that's one advantage that they have over the active duty Army. The instructors tend to stay instructors, so they gain a heck of a lot of experience. That's why the Army is always calling these guys up saying, hey, what are you guys working on? What's the best boot for crampons? Should we be doing land navigation with altimeters? That kind of thing. This isn't just a school, it's a lab, and every soldier who trains here becomes part of that experiment. Now, this isn't Ranger School. There's no yelling, there's no badge protection. Although they don't like to say it, this is a gentleman's course. Why? Because mountain warfare is about problem solving, not checklist thinking. So, I went to a slick rigger school. And when you're rigging a pallet, there is one way to do it, right? When you're a jump master, there's a checklist. There is one way to do it. You don't deviate from the established methods. And that makes sense when you're trying to get an entire division air assault qualified. Just tell someone how to do something, and that works like 99% of the time. But on a mountain, there are 1,000 ways to solve a problem, and the only bad way is the one that gets someone killed. So let's talk about structure. The Level 1 course is basic military mountaineering. That gives you the E identifier, and it teaches you knots, ropes, movement, casualty evacuation, and land navigation with an altimeter. Then there's the Level 2 portion of the school. That's kind of like Jump Master for mountaineers. You do multi-pitch trad climbs, rig complex hauls, you advise commanders on terrain, and yeah, you own the rope site. The advanced courses have 1-to-2 instructor-student ratios, and that is elite level coaching. And it's deliberate because in these environments, the margin of error on the mountain is razor thin. You also have a mountain planners course at the school, a rough terrain evacuation course, and even a mountain rifleman course, basically sniper school for alpine conditions. So why is all this being done in Vermont? Turns out it's the perfect place. See, back in 1982, when the school was first being proposed, the U.S. Army had a couple of choices. Sure, they could put the mountain school in Colorado, but then it would take 1 to 2 days for most students to acclimate to the elevation. Now, Camp Ethan Allen is 30 minutes from the Burlington Airport and maybe 1,200 feet above sea level. It's not really at altitude, so you don't have to worry about acclimatization, and you also need a bus ride from the training site to the barracks. You can walk everywhere, and by the way, you're going to walk a lot if you go to this school. You walk to every training event, so if you want to go to mountain school, put on a rucksack and march 5 miles a day at a 5-degree treadmill incline. Making the walks is actually harder than learning to tie all the knots and all the technical stuff you actually encounter. So if you are going to go to the school, start walking. When you first get to mountain school, you will walk up this event called the ski hill. And this is where most people self-select to drop out. There is a way of walking up hills. You don't just tackle it head on and go straight up. That uses your calf muscles, and calf muscles are pretty small and get tired quick. Instead, when you go up a hill, you want to use your quads, right? You want to do these switchbacks and just kind of move at an angle that's almost perpendicular to the hill. Then turn around and repeat the process and go up slowly. Yes, it's going to take longer, but you'll be a lot less tired than if you try to go straight up the hill. Now, all of this walking means you're going to want some good boots. The standard Army issue boot doesn't cut it in the mountains. You want a 3/4 or full shank and a leather upper that can take a crampon. Instructors wear Sportivas, but they're really only authorized for the instructors at mountain school. Solomon GTXs work as a boot, but you want the full height model for ankle protection. Don't show up with an ankle length boot no matter what your chain of command authorizes. You want as much ankle support as possible. Believe me, I did a lot of walking when I was there. So when it comes to socks, get darn tough socks. We're talking merino wool. That's what I used, end of story. And going to mountain school is pretty interesting because it kind of teaches you to think in multiple dimensions. Most soldiers are kind of trained to shoot and move on flat ground, and that's because most Army training areas are flat and woody because it's cheap land. You might have a urban warfare site, but usually the buildings on that site only go up like 3 or 4 stories. So you're not really used to thinking in 3 dimensions like you would on a mountain. But the whole point behind mountain school is to teach you to think in mountainous terrain. You might believe that the distance between 2 points on a map is, let's say, 1 kilometer. And you might think, well, a soldier under heavy load can do 1 kilometer in 20 minutes. But look at some of these contour lines. I mean, they are spaced really close together. It's very easy to move markers on a map, but it's a lot harder to move tactically through mountains. Doing so might require the use of rope lines. And this is something a level 2 mountaineer might do with a level 1 mountaineer assisting. And this rope line would allow a unit of soldiers to safely move up or down rough terrain. Now, everybody knows about a horizontal danger area, like a road or a field. It's any location on a unit route where the terrain or the environment exposes that unit to potential enemy observation, fire, or both. But in mountain operations, there's actually a terminology called a vertical danger area, which is any sort of terrain that might require a technical climb. Now, like any danger area, you have to go through your planning. Can you bypass this vertical danger area? If not, what is your approach toward the danger area? But remember, for every pound of mountaineering gear you bring along, that is 1 less pound of ammunition or water that you can carry. So you have to weigh the speed and safety of climbing that obstacle with perhaps moving around that obstacle if you can. And the mission always dictates, right? If you have to move up a vertical danger area, you might use something like a climbing ascender. This is a handheld tool that actually allows you to climb a rope, but it only moves in one direction, that's up. I actually got a chance to climb a wall with one of these vertical ascenders, and it's not easy, but it is a lot safer than just holding onto the rope with 2 hands and going hand over hand. Now, the school actually teaches climbing on the tallest rock wall in Vermont. I actually went up the thing. I have done a bit of climbing, but I've always done it in rock climbing shoes. Climbing in boots is totally different. The school also teaches how to shoot in the mountains. And I'll tell you, I got a chance to shoot. It's a lot harder than you think. And this is going to take some math. You know, most people are used to shooting on wide, flat ranges, and our rifles and our sights are calibrated to shoot straight and level. But when shooting from a mountain, the base is a fixed distance, but the hypotenuse is the actual range. So let's say that I'm 100 meters up on a cliff. The range to the target is 300 meters, but the bullet is actually traveling 360 meters because it's traveling the hypotenuse. That means gravity is affecting the bullet for less time than the calibrated range. So the bullet is actually going to land a little bit higher than you need to expect. So you actually need to aim lower on the target. This is something they actually practice at mountain school. It is a big mental stumbling block because soldiers are always trained to shoot center mass. So it takes a little bit of practice, and having a spotter helps a lot to call these shots. Now, you're also not typically shooting prone on a mountain, mainly because it's usually rocky or you're on a slope. So the school actually teaches soldiers how to shoot in all sorts of uncomfortable positions and use whatever gear they have on them to help. So you might use a rucksack or make a tripod out of some sticks and use some rope. That way you have a shooting rest. Wind is also different in the mountains. Wind can be radically different from your firing location than it is the target. For example, if wind is heading directly at the cliff face, the wind will tend to flow directly up. If you're shooting perpendicular to a valley, the wind will actually move faster in narrow valleys than wide ones. And in that respect, wind is actually a lot like water, where water flows faster in narrow channels. Another exercise we performed while I was at the school was medical evacuation. This is typically done with a sked, which is a lightweight collapsible stretcher. Medical evacuation is not as simple as calling in a helicopter or an ambulance, right? A ground ambulance might not be able to get up the mountain, and the tactical or weather conditions on a mountain might not allow for a helicopter. So this means that soldiers might have to lower that casualty down the mountain. I was actually allowed to film this exercise, and two interesting things came to mind. The first is packing. You actually have to pack this casualty so they can survive the journey down the mountain. The second is that you have to be very careful moving this casualty. The mountain doesn't care if you're a rescuer. It's almost as dangerous as the adversary. Hell, at least it's consistent. Gravity always wins. Gravity's always consistent. So the trip down the mountain with the casualty is done as slowly as the tactical situation permits, because you don't want another casualty among the rescuers. You know, I learned a heck of a lot in my time at the school, and the one thing that really stood out was the dedication of the instructors. They don't just do mountaineering on their personal time. It's how they're laser focused on being the best tactically and technically proficient mountaineer instructors on the planet. And many of these men are outdoorsmen who trace their lineage back to the Revolutionary War and the Green Mountain Boys who took Fort Ticonderoga from the British. The man of the mountain is far different than the man of the valley. There's a lot of people I'd like to thank for helping me with this video. To start, Lieutenant Colonel Jason Beam, the commander of the school, and First Sergeant Max Rooney. These men not only answered my questions, they did a heck of a lot more walking up the mountains than you would expect a commander and a first sergeant to do. Thank you to Major Brad Patnaude, the school executive officer, who was very patient with me and all of my questions. Thank you to Sergeant First Class Adam Chamberlain, the NCOIC and senior instructor who taught me how to use an ascender. The school's lucky to have your expertise. And special thanks to marksmanship instructor Sergeant First Class Rinaldi and Sergeant First Class Lavoie, who were extremely patient in explaining mountain marksmanship. And hey, if you want to support the channel, go grab my Intel Life t-shirt from Bunker Branding. I'm also a novelist. Last Republic, available on Amazon or on Audible if you're a Marine. It imagines a world where Brigham Young created the country of Deseret instead of the state of Utah. And what happens 170 years later, where America doesn't want it to exist anymore? Thank you guys so much for watching.